Hello and welcome to Spirit Sherpa, the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. I'm Joshua Radewan, your co-host, here as always with transformational shaman and spiritual coach Kelle Sparta. Hey Kelly,
Hi,
we just
Bubba.
recorded one, but hi again.
Hi again. Yeah. Well, no, not hi. But
Uh,
yeah, it's 7:30 in the morning. Anyway, it's 8:20. We're getting there.
and I'm off coffee. I gave up
Oh,
coffee a week ago,
geez.
and
Yeah. I went off coffee for a while. I did not enjoy it. I didn't mind the lack of caffeine. I minded the lack of coffee. Coffee and I have a relationship. We love each other. And,
I think we build those relationships with our beautiful herbs.
well, and it's I live in the coffee capital of the world. It's sacrilegious to not drink the coffee.
You're tapped into the collective of the area,
I am.
and then
I love my coffee.
And as somebody who got to experience that coffee firsthand, I still have a little bit left. So when I do break my coffee fast, I'm going to be drinking the good stuff down there that
Yeah.
you hooked
Well,
us up
and
with.
that's on a farm that my friend of mine runs. So, it's beautiful coffee. It's called Brisas, and it's just divine. And then when we make it, we also add cinnamon stick into the grounds and some cardamom pods that broken up, and so it is divine.
I was mixing it with the cacao from the chocolatory you took us on.
Yes,
So I was
yeah.
mixing a little bit of that, but I was doing it in a French press too. And I'll,
Ooh.
and I'll tell you, for somebody who's got, it's so funny as a lifetime, like who is a former stimulant user, I use a little coffee. I'm like, oh, that's too much pep now. Like since my psychic sensitivity's up, I'm like, oh, that's too much.
Well, and the other weird thing that's happened for me recently is that I've gotten to the point where I can't watch violent shows anymore. I
Same.
literally I choose my TV based on I'm actually watching a lot of 90s shows because they're a lot less violent. I'm 80s is too kitschy, but the 90s is fine. Um, but I've been watching a lot of those because the violence factor is real. And I mean, it can be something innocuous and there'll still be something incredibly violent in it. And I'm like, why? What is the purpose for this violence? It makes me crazy. And so, but yeah, I've really had to curtail what I watch because of the gore and the violence factor. And I'm just like, when I was a kid, I remember hearing about the Romans in the Colosseum and how they would feed people to the lions. They'd feed the Christians to the lions. And I was like, why would you want to watch that? And then I look at TV today and I'm like, it's the same thing. It's just not in person. You know, it's not real, but your mind doesn't know the difference, right?
All
Our
right.
brains don't know the difference between watching somebody die on screen and watching somebody die in person. Your brain
Well,
just cannot discern the difference.
and you wonder why we've taken a step back from empathy in a lot of pockets in the world, right? Like this is all going into that collective unconscious, right?
Yeah.
Like we're soaking this stuff up left and right as a collective, and the less we watch, absolutely, I think that's a great way to make a mark. I know I haven't either. Like I grew up, I was the action figure or action guy. I always watch action movies. Now I can do the Avengers.
Yeah.
Because I look at it as modern mythos, and I love Doctor Strange, and
Oh, it's my favorite.
yeah. So that's about as far as I'll go with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Doctor
but
Strange
even
followed the
that,
bag of moving along.
still haven't watched it. You guys have recommended that so many times in the group.
I've watched it 3 times now. The
Yeah.
whole the whole series 3 times. It's so good. So, uh, mythologically speaking, magically speaking, and just storytelling wise, it's just brilliant. So, I still like Doctor Strange better, but only because it feels more like me, right? Um, so it's less anti. Well, he kind of is an anti-hero, to be honest. But yeah,
Are we all?
I like the anti-hero. Yeah.
It's
So
funny. I try not to over-identify with characters, but like it was at the end of I think it was the second movie, the multiverse of madness, and he's got all the demons around him, and she's like, "Steven, use your demons. You're a sorcerer." And I was like,
right.
"Oh, you get it now. Use that."
It might be good for you while you're on walkabout to read some Carlos Castaneda books. That probably wouldn't hurt you in this.
Yeah.
That'd probably be good for you to do. So, because you've read Taisha Alvalar, which she was also working with Dongan,
Fantastic.
right? And so
Absolutely. Yeah.
now, and now it's time to look at some Carlos Castaneda for you to get the male perspective on it, right?
Yeah, that makes
So,
sense.
anyway, today, now that we're
Gay.
5 minutes
Spirit
into the
Sherpa.
show, today we're going to talk about the difference between a soul contract and a trauma bond. And so we should probably define those terms before we go into it. So a soul contract is what you come into this life with, right? We make contracts with different members of our soul family and other spirits if we happen to be working with them for the lifetime to do certain things at certain times with us, right? So for instance, I know for a fact my ex-husband and I were meant to meet because when I talked to him, when I was going to college, I was looking at 3 different schools: Ithaca, New York, Puget Sound, Washington, and San Diego, California. You cannot get further apart in the US from each other than these things, right? And during the 4 years I was in college, he was on all 3 of those campuses at some point. And
Of course he
so
was.
I'm like, yeah, this was a soul contract. We had to meet, and this was part of the things. So that's an obvious one, right? It's like, okay, that's where that is. Soul contracts are, sometimes it's just a chance meeting in a subway station, right? It's, somebody says something that just sends your life spinning randomly in a subway station, and then you never see them again, right? So that could be a soul contract too. And, soul contracts also could be things that you choose for yourself before you come into this life. So things that you agree to do or not do, or to be beholden to, or whatever, right? Sometimes we're working out karma, things like that, right? So the trauma bond, on the other hand,
It actually has my picture next to it in the dictionary. If we look it up, every relationship after the age of 18, I was like, oh, let's talk about our nastiest shit. And, tell me about your traumas while I open the date with mine. And let's continue to build from that place. Is that's
yeah. Yeah,
in
so
a
that's
nutshell?
probably not your best starting point, but
No, I've learned.
so trauma bond is, I mean, it could be what you're talking about, but it's most often like what people refer to as foxhole bonding, right? It's you've experienced a shared trauma, and now you're bonding over that. The sharedness of the trauma is what bonds you together. And so on a big scale, things like going to war with another country trauma bonds your country, because you guys are all collectively afraid for the people who are over at the war. You're collectively afraid that the country that you're at war with is going to bomb your country. That's a collective large scale trauma bond, right? If you're literally a soldier in a foxhole with another soldier and people are shooting at you, you will bond with the other soldier, right? If you are in a workspace environment that's toxic and abusive, the coworkers in that workspace will trauma bond because they are collectively under attack from this outside force, right? Which is usually their boss, right? So these are trauma bond scenarios. And you can also trauma bond the way that you were talking about when you get into new age or personal growth spaces, right? Where people are doing their inner workshop dynamics, right? You can trauma bond with people over not traumas that are happening right now, but traumas that you've both collectively experienced in the past that for which you had no witness, right? You can do it if you had a witness, but it's less likely to happen, right? If you were witnessed in your pain at the time your trauma happened, it's infinitely more easy to recover from that trauma, right? And so one of the reasons why we trauma bond with people in workshop space is because we didn't have a witness, and that person is serving as our witness after the fact. And so that witness then becomes the savior energy, and the person that we cling to is kind of like, you're drowning and you're clinging to each other, trying to get out of the water, right? And, being in a workshop environment, if you've got a facilitator who's worth anything, then, the facilitator goes, okay, just put your feet down and stop trying to struggle, right? There is a bottom underneath you, just stand up. And then the two of you who've been clinging to each other stand up and you go, oh my God, I love you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you, right? And you're still bonded, right? So that sort of trauma bond can happen too. And that can also happen in relationships, as you were discussing, Josh.
Or relationships.
But we do these things for a reason, right? I tell people all the time, I'm like, the best workshops in the world are relationships and businesses. If you're running a business or if you're in a relationship, you're in a workshop 24/7, right?
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more.
They are the best workshops you can have. Sadly, they don't come with facilitation, which is the problem. But so that's when having a coach or a therapist or something like that is super helpful, because
Really helps,
especially
guys.
if you're in like a twin flame sort of scenario, because man, that just takes it to a whole nother level, right? Twin flames are there designed to actually trigger the crap out of you. So oh my God, I just realized this in this moment. So I have a friend that I refer to as a brother. He and I were real estate agents together way back in the 90s. And he was my twin flame. He is my twin flame. I mean, we don't talk much anymore because the purpose has been served. Um, but yeah, he used to just poke me to watch me spin, and that was his entertainment. He's like, you're too easily spun up. I'm just going to keep poking this button until it gets desensitized. And man, I could spin back then, man. I was good at spinning. I was just like,
I'm sure that skill's still in there.
well, it's still there, but it's more under control.
Is that the keeping the bitch in the box kind of?
Yeah. Although, when things happen online, like Vimeo just recently sent me a message saying, oh, you were unsubscribed by accident when we did a system update. So we resubscribed you and charged you. And I was like, I was unsubscribed because I told you to unsubscribe me, and this is fraud. I was like, all caps.
Right.
Give me my money back. Right. I was bad. I was just like, I turned this off a month and a half ago. Why? Right. And so, yeah, I can still spin sometimes, but he used to set me off just to watch me spin. I was known as the tactless wonder back then, because I would just come in with, just blazing and, burning bridges and steamrolling people to get them to do what I wanted them to do. And to the point where this was the first year I was in real estate. He would literally get on the phone with agents and say, you don't want me to put Kelle on the phone, do you? They knew, right? If I had to go on the phone, I was going to just rip them to shreds. And they were like, no, we'll work it out. It'll be fine.
It's funny that you bring up the twin flame journey, because it's something that I love and hate, just like a twin flame journey should. But before we jumped on, I was looking at the title and I was thinking, a soul contract can absolutely be a trauma bust.
Yeah.
I feel like I witnessed that in one of my previous relationships, is that the universe sent us together. There was like no way that this wasn't a meeting point that was absolutely going to happen. And the choices made throughout that created the experience, and it could have went either way. I believe. I could be absolutely wrong on that, but which is my favorite thing to say as a shaman, is like, I could be wrong about everything I just said.
Yes.
Yeah, but that twin flame journey is, it's something that I never put a lot of stock in for a long time, but it's kind of getting hard to ignore some of it, and the way that people get drawn together in it. And it really does push you both ways, right? Like, it pushes both people to be better versions of themselves in the most psychotic and maddening ways at times.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. So, so how do we tell the difference, right? So, I gave you some hints, right? I could tell that my husband and I were meant to meet. My first husband was, because of all the different places and how far apart they were during the same time he was in. And, and I was like, oh, yeah, we were meant to meet. Right. Um, but then, how do you know otherwise? I mean, it's the random person who says something to you at a party. So somebody came up to me years later and said, "You said this random thing to me at a party, and it just totally changed my life." And I was like, "I don't even remember talking to you, but okay." You know, that is a soul contract, right? That's a soul contract because it wasn't honestly, I mean, it sounded like me, so it could have been me, but it also could have been just my guides channeling through me in that moment, right? Um, and if generally a soul contract is you feel this draw to someone, right? So you can tell the soul contract either from the outcome, which is your whole life spun in a new direction, or from the situational thing. There were 3 different places that we could have met, and they're so disparate that there's no way that would have been coincidence, right? um and then the third way is through the magnetic pull, right? So magnetic pull is generally a soul contract. You're just like, "Whoa," it's that I need to talk to you. Oh my God. Oh, look at this, right? And it's generally that energy that is a soul contract. You're pulled together. There's usually super intense for a period of time and then it wanders off, right? That's whenever the transition is made that was meant to be made for the soul contract, then the bond is complete, right? You're done.
So it's interesting, we've talked about this before, and I will get into this a little bit with the timeline stuff because I do, in the next episode. But one of the things about soul contracts is breaking them. So I chose to break a soul contract over the last year, and I didn't do it lightly, right?
Yeah.
And for what it's worth, now that that's funny. I just got taken back to the beginning of Walkabout when I was on Journey. It said the contract is expired. That's funny. I didn't need to break it. I just needed to let it go. It's funny, but
Let
that's
it
funny.
go. Let it.
And the year of the snake returns. Yeah, but I had said, to my former partner, I was like, if this is what continues to happen, I don't want to play with these players anymore. I'm
Right.
out. I was like, if we can either do this work and we can go to the next stage together and evolve, and I'm totally in for it, or I'm out. I am going to play with other players, and I think the soul contracts that came in the middle of that were also soul contracts to test everybody's commitment to said program.
Yeah.
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 So here we are.
And that's it, right? So trauma bonds, on the other hand, feel like life rafts. They feel like, oh my God, somebody finally sees me. Oh my God, I feel held. Oh my God, da 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 da. Right? That's they feel more like a life raft or a finally somebody sees me or a something like that. Those are more trauma bonds, and so and I want to be really clear. There's nothing wrong with a trauma bond. Okay, there's nothing wrong with it, and the thing that it's just the difference, right? Because with a trauma bond, if you misinterpret it as a soul contract, you may think, oh, I have to stay here until something changes. And you don't, right? A trauma bond is just a trauma bond. It's a friend in the midst of trauma. It's somebody to witness your pain. And that's enough. It doesn't have to do anything else. Right?
I just wrote a chapter in my new book about this kind of, and it was, like trauma bonding is one of those hot, topics right now, and that's why we're talking about it today. And I really dug into that. Like, is it bad, right? And I think no, unless it becomes a foundational piece of the relationship. If that's what the relationship is based on, and that's what it keeps going back to, then not so much because there's not as much growth. It's just a container of stagnation.
Yeah.
But I think for me personally, I use going through trauma bonding and being like owning my complete responsibility in that. That what it taught me was that how to elevate how that works instead of, bonding through the trauma, it's bonding through the growth. Yes, we went through this. This is my weak points. How can we recognize each other's weak points and not step all over them, right? Instead of, using them to, control or manipulate, right? Which is something I've experienced in the last couple of relationships a little bit.
Well, and the other side of the getting my, stuff tromped on, right? Is this person is showing me where I need to grow, right?
Our greatest teachers.
Yes. And one of the things that you and I talked about a lot when you were in that relationship was, is this who you want to be, right? Is this the life you want? Is this the experience you want to have, right? Because part of the work of trauma bonding is to bring up the trauma so that you can see it, right? And be witnessed in it and hopefully heal from it, right? But the other part of it is recognizing when you are having the experience that you don't want to have and that you have the option not to have it.
There's this wise woman I know, right? Wise woman. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. Hold on, it's coming through. It's you. And she said in the middle of what I was going through last year, you can choose not to eviscerate yourself this deeply in shadow work. To which I thought, oh no, I'll be able to fix this. Anyway, I'm on walkabout.
Yeah.
Which was the healing part, but I signed up for it.
Yeah.
I just signed up for a longer lesson with it.
Yeah. And this is the thing, right? We can have harder or easier paths as we choose. And this is one of the things that, like, I had a friend who came to, when we were doing Manifest Your Mission and we were going around the country, she came to the events and she was, I think I've told this story recently, maybe. If I have, stop me. But she was in the habit of processing face down in the dirt, like moaning and crying and like not able to function, right? And I got called on my shit in the front of the room by Kathy because no, I don't get away from this either. And we were having this conversation and Kathy's like, I'm done with this. We're processing this now in front of the whole group, right? Where I'm holding space for other people. She's like, nope, you're processing now. I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do it. And I went through the process and I released it and I did it. And the woman, my friend, came up to me and she said, oh my God, I didn't realize it could be easy. And I was like, yeah, it can be easy. It doesn't have to be face down in the dirt, moan and groan hard. It can be simple. You can just look at it, acknowledge it, be with it, let the emotions go. And sometimes they have to be processed. Sometimes they can just be released. And off you go to the races. Next is the thing. I'm like, okay. And that was like revolutionary for her because, we had been brought up in the pagan world of the Earth Spirit community where it's suffer, Cocoa Bob, right? And that's just the mode. That's the model. So yeah, it's like that. And so,
Like that.
you have to, the amount of pain you go through in processing your trauma is entirely up to you. If you need to go back into the trauma and dig deep and just experience it and feel it because you never felt the emotions before and whatever, then that's what you have to do. If you have felt the emotions over and over and over again, but you're still holding on to them. I love the phrase from the Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, I think. No, the Divine Sisters of the Yaya Sisterhood. Divine something of the Yaya Sisterhood. And a movie, and where she says, you know how I am. I just, I love to chew on my problems. And when I've chewed all the flavor out of them, I stick them in my hair, right? It's like, if you've been chewing them until they have no flavor left and sticking them in your hair, then it could just be simple as going, oh, no, I don't need that anymore, and just throwing it away, right? So it depends on how you've approached your work in the past, right?
Probably the second one for me. I'm the chewer.
I know.
Farming every little bit of wisdom that is no longer there out of it. I'm learning.
Yeah. So, the trauma bond stuff, it really just depends on what level of work you're doing as to how long you need to be there and what you need to do to get out of it. But just be aware that if your relationship is based on shared trauma, that's not a foundation for a relationship. It is a foundation for a workshop. It's a foundation for doing work together, but it is not a relationship, right? So that's the other piece of the puzzle. Because otherwise, what ends up happening is if you're not actively healing, then you're actively reinforcing the stuckness in that dynamic. So if you're not moving forward, you are reinforcing and supporting each other in being in pain. And so just be aware that if you have one of those relationships, you best be moving forward, or else you're going to be getting more stuck every moment. It's really like a quicksand, right? You get stuck. So be careful, standing in mud, right? Longer you stand there, the more you move your feet around and don't move anywhere, the deeper you get stuck in the mud, right? Yeah. So, all right. So with that said, so we've covered the soul contract and what it is. And let's talk about how to break one.
Yeah, I mean,
You've done it recently, so even though you
for
didn't,
me, I go, it's I kind of go into a self hypnosis, right? I took this out of the school of Dolores Cannon too. So I will, I will lower myself down into kind of that liminal space where I'm just kind of floating. And then I will, visualize myself in front of the person in which I am wanting to break said contract with. And I just simply say, I am breaking this contract. It has not been working for either one of us. I am going to go my way. You can go your way. There's no hard feelings. And then I just simply tear the contract, turn around and walk away. Oh, I can feel that doing things as I'm doing that right now. This is a thing. You know how that works. Did you just shaman me?
I didn't. No, you did that all by yourself. You shaman yourself.
Oh, boy.
Yeah. My baby.
Yeah, I can feel that one. Whew. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So when I break a soul contract, I actually go to the Akashic records and I pull the contract out of the file cabinet and I either tear it up or usually I burn it. Because, tearing it up, the pieces are still there. So
fair enough. Yeah.
just like set it on fire and close the cabinet and I'm done. Right. So, but be careful because you put your soul contracts in place for a reason. Right. And so, you need to look square in the face that you are choosing to break something that your higher self decided was necessary for you. Now, at your stage with the stuff you've been going through, you've gone through a huge amount of stuff with that person. So, breaking it at that stage, you're pretty much done with it anyway. You said the contract had expired, right? And so, you're probably done with it. But if you're going into something and you're avoiding it, you need to know that what you can't accomplish now because you broke this contract will probably show up for you in a different way because you still have to get to where you're going based on the storyline you laid out for yourself in the beginning. And so that's its own challenge, right? So just be aware that, breaking a soul contract is it's
a devil,
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you're avoiding this one. You may not be avoiding all of them, right? Yeah. Okay. And with that said, I think we're good, right?
I think we're good. Broke a soul contract online, on live on Spirit Sherpa, so we're good.
Yeah. So remember to like, subscribe, and share. And join us in the Facebook group. It's the Spirit Sherpa Facebook group, right? And I can't remember if it's Spirit Sherpa something. But it's the only thing that Spirit Sherpa is a group. So just come on.
You'll find it.
You'll find it. And remember that what you focus on expands, and what you intend is what you create. So choose wisely. Have a good one.